Hello everyone. Thank you for joining this session on what's new in Power BI from Ignite 2022. My name is Zoe Douglas, and I'll be showing you more about the Optimize ribbon. So what is this new Optimize ribbon for? The Optimize ribbon gives you easy access to tools to streamline your report authoring experience. While this is especially true for those of you using Direct Query, it is not limited to Direct Query reports and available for reports using import, hybrid, or even composite models. So what tools are found in the Optimize ribbon? Here we give you full control over the visuals with pause visuals and refresh visuals. Did you know that there are different levels of interactivity in the settings of Power BI? Optimize presets gives you quick access to predefined combinations of these settings, ranging from query reduction to full interactivity. And finally, delve deeper into what your visuals are doing and how long they are taking to do it with the Performance Analyzer. What do we mean by giving you full control over when visuals refresh? With a click of the Pause Visuals button, the whole report will enter a pause state, where no query will run from the visuals. You can still format the visuals just like before, and those changes will show immediately. But as soon as a formatting action or a new field is added to the visual will enter a pending state. In a pending state, the visual will allow fields to be added or removed, but formatting will be blocked until it is refreshed. You can refresh visuals individually or all together and maintain the pause state of the report, or simply resume visual queries to have Power BI Desktop behave like before. Next up, Optimization Presets does not bring new query reduction features to Power BI, but instead lets you access them much faster than before. Try out full query reduction and understand how it impacts your report experience so you can adjust your report, for example, by adding additional slicers or utilizing the filter pane instead of using cross-filtering. Then quickly try out the other setting, favoring full interactivity with just another click. And Customize allows you to easily navigate to these settings and adjust to suit your reporting needs. Finally, another feature we released for public preview in October 2022 was relationship editing in the Properties pane. This is not part of the Optimize ribbon, but at its core is here to help you author faster. You can click on any relationship line in the model view and adjust the relationship right there in the Properties pane, and click Apply Changes when ready. Let me show you a demo of how to use these new tools to streamline your report authoring experience. Okay, here I have a Direct Query report with over 2 billion taxi trips, and it is analyzing the time of day people use in New York City taxi. I can use pause visuals in the Optimize ribbon to quickly make some requested changes to my report. I click on the Optimize ribbon and then click on Pause Visuals button to pause this report. Now I can add an additional field, such as Fair, to the Visuals tooltips, and instead of running a query right away, the visual enters a pending state until I'm ready to get more data. I can also add additional measures, such as average fare per trip. Adding or removing measures in a Direct Query report prompts all visuals to refresh, but with pause visuals enabled, they do not send queries and instead enter a pending state until I'm ready. I can add this new measure to my visual without refreshing, and then I can refresh a single visual or all of them at once. And I can also simply resume my visual queries entirely from my whole report. I can also add a new visual while the report is paused. Let's go to the Optimize ribbon and click on Pause Visuals again. Now I can create a new page called Matrix to add in a way to show volume of trips per day by day of week and time of day. I click on the matrix visual and bring it to the center of my canvas. Now I can add in trips, day of the week, and time of day. I can reorder the fields, putting day of the week on the columns and time of day on the rows. If you're keeping count, I have already stopped 5 queries from running. I'm also only interested in the year 2013, so I can open the filter pane, drag in the year, and filter the visual to only 2013. As you can see, Pause Visuals did not block the filter pane at all, and applied the filter on the visual. Now I can go ahead and click Refresh on the visual to see it now that I'm ready. So far, I've only ran one query. And not only is it the number of queries I've avoided running, but also the query I'm running is much faster, as I've reduced the number of rows I'm querying to. Now I see my data, I can format this visual a bit. You will notice these formatting changes are happening immediately, because these changes do not require a query to be ran. It's using the cache data, so we try not to get in your way or stop you unnecessarily. I also want to add in a background color, and when I do that formatting action, a query is needed, so the visual again goes into a pending state. At this point, I'm done, and I go ahead and resume visual queries to see my matrix. Now I'm done with my requested changes, I can check out the optimization presets in the Optimize ribbon. It was nice to stop the queries while I was making changes, but how can I stop so many queries from running while my end users are using the report? I click on Optimization Presets and choose Query Reduction. The tooltip explains to me that this is great for a direct query, and the dialog explains to me it is turning off cross-highlight and cross-filtering between my visuals, and there are now apply buttons on my slicers and in the filter pane. This is great! I had no idea Power BI even had these settings. Now when I click on visual elements, the other visuals are not sending queries. Fantastic! I can even customize this a bit to say maybe remove the apply buttons on my slicers, as I don't expect my users to make multiple selections within one slicer. I can click on Optimization Presets again, and this time choose Customize. I am quickly taken to the exact settings page for these things, and then pick and choose what I want my report to have. And I'm done. If I want to revert back to Power BI's default of full interactivity, just to try it out, or if I've made a change to my data sources, I can do that by clicking again on the optimization presets and choosing interactivity. So easy. Data modelers, I have not left you out. Just like with report authors and report viewers, you also have a streamlined authoring experience, specifically to edit relationships. Let's go to the model view, and here now I can click on any of these relationships and see all of their properties in the Properties pane. I can change the table, column, cardinality, direction, if it is active or inactive, and even turn on Assume Referential Integrity. When I'm done making all my changes, instead of having queries running to validate with every click, I can now simply click Apply Changes to validate and save in one step. The Relationship Editor dialog is still available if you want to see a data preview and validate as you go. In addition to not validating as you click, the data preview and associated query is not running in the Properties pane. Finally, you can also select multiple relationships if you hold down the Control key, and you can make bulk updates, such as making them all active or inactive, or even delete them all with the Delete key. You'll be prompted as there is no undo to this action. So try out these features today. If you don't see them, make sure you're using the November 2022 or later release. And in File, Options and Settings, Options, go to the Preview features and make sure Optimize Ribbon and Relationship Editing in the Properties pane are turned on. Now you've seen how the Optimize Ribbon gives you easy access to tools to streamline your report authoring experience. Try it out today, especially those of you with direct query reports, but remember it's available for all reports. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Parul Bansal, and I am Principal PM in Microsoft. My team owns B2B capabilities within Power BI. B2B capabilities are all about how do you collaborate with external users, the users that are outside of your tenant. How do you share data with them, and how do you collaborate with them? We are launching a new cross-tenant dataset sharing capability, which will allow users from one tenant to share their dataset with another tenant in a way that the consumer tenant users can see these datasets in their own tenant. They can build content on the top, and they can own that content in their own environment. To explain the concept in detail, maybe you want to look at the scenario on the slide where we have two organizations. There is Contoso and there is Fabricam. And if Jim from Fabricam needs access to anything in Contoso environment, Jim will first need to be added to Contoso's AAD as a guest user. And then with this guest user identity, Jim can be given access to any Power BI artifact in the Contoso environment. And then Jim can come to Contoso environment with his guest user identity and access whatever he has been given access to. This capability has worked very well for many use cases and scenarios amongst our customers. For example, if Jim is a consultant working for Contoso, it is easy for Jim to go to Contoso environment and build Power BI reports for Contoso in the Contoso environment. But if Jim has a scenario where he needs to take the data out of Contoso and take it back to his Fabricam environment, it is not possible with the Power BI B2B capabilities that have existed before. With this new capability, when Ash shares his data set with Lucy using this new capability, Lucy can see those data sets in her own environment. She can connect to those data sets. She can build a composite model on the top. She can build reporting on the top, and she can own these models and reports that she has built in her own environment. And if required, she can also share these artifacts with other folks in within her own Fabricam environment. The RLS OLS that would be applied to these data sets by Ash in his environment would work for Fabricam environment as well. It's an in-place sharing, which means that the data that Ash is sharing with Lucy, there is no deep copy for this data that is created in Fabricam environment. The storage of the data remains within Contoso boundaries. All that Lucy gets is live access to this data set at the Fabricam side. I would now like to demo this feature to you.
We are launching a cross-tenant dataset sharing capability, which will allow users from one tenant to share their dataset with another in a way that the consumer tenant users can see these datasets in their own tenant. They can build content on the top in their own environment. I will be walking you through the provider flow first. Provider flow is how you share this dataset with the users. So we have this inventory dataset open. We will share it with a B2B user. We will ensure that B2B user has minimum build access to the dataset. And then we will go to the dataset properties and we will turn on the external sharing on this dataset. When we turn this on, the B2B users who have minimum build access to this dataset, they can discover, connect to, and work with this dataset in their own tenant. So I apply this, and with this, the provider flow is complete. Now I will walk you through the consumer flow, which is how these B2B users who have access to the dataset are consuming this dataset in their own tenant. So here, this is the desktop for consumer user. We go to the Power BI datasets here, and now we can see a fourth tab here, which is external data. When I click on it, I see the inventory dataset here. So this is a dataset that is shared with me by another tenant. I can here see which organization is sharing with me and some metadata around the dataset, and I can connect to it. I select the tables, and we can see that the external dataset is opening up here on the right hand side, and it's open. Now I can go and mesh this data with the internal data. So unit cost data is my internal dataset. I go and connect with it, and then we select the tables and we add the second data set here, and we have the composite model ready. And now we will just publish this data set to our web service, and we choose a workspace to publish this to, and our model is published to the service. Now we will go to the service and create a report on the top. So this is where we have published it. We can see sample data model has appeared up here. We can go to this composite model, and it would, at this point, this is just like any other composite model. We can create a report on top. We can analyze this in Excel. So let me create an auto report on the top, and we have the report ready, and then we can save this. For providers to be able to share a data set, it is important that certain tenant settings are enabled in the provider environment. I'll walk you through those settings. So if we go to admin portal and we go to tenant settings, The first setting that needs to be enabled is use datasets across workspaces. So if you want your datasets to be used outside of your workspace, you need to enable this. And for this feature, we want our datasets to be used across tenants. So we need to keep this enabled. Then next setting is in the export and sharing settings bucket. So first one is allow Azure Active Directory guest users to access Power BI. For this feature, we need to share the datasets with the guest users. So please keep this setting enabled so that your guest users can actually access your Power BI and its content. The next setting that we are going to talk about is in the same bucket. It's allow guest users to work with shared datasets in their own tenants. It's a new setting that we have introduced with this feature launch. This setting is disabled by default, and when you enable it, the guest users who have the appropriate permission on the appropriate datasets, they will be able to discover and connect to the datasets in their own environment only if the setting is enabled. And then second setting that we have introduced with this feature launch is allow specific users to turn on external data sharing. So in the previous demo, we saw the dataset level setting that needs to be enabled if the datasets needs to be discovered by the external users in their own tenant. So this setting defines who in your organization can turn on that dataset level setting so that it can become available to the external users in their own tenant. You can leave it on for entire organization, which is its default state, or you can limit it to specific groups, or you can block certain groups from getting these permissions to the dataset level properties. Next setting that I'm going to talk about is in the integration settings bucket, which is allow XML endpoints and analyze in Excel with on-premises datasets. This setting needs to be enabled because we need XML endpoints to be enabled in order to use this feature set. And last but not the least, if you are sharing datasets from your non-premium workspace, you also need to keep one more setting enabled, which is again in export settings bucket, which is allow live connections. This is going to allow that XMLA connection to be available for non-premium workspaces. So please keep this enabled if your dataset resides in the non-premium workspace.
We are launching another capability that is going to make the discoverability of external content very easy for the guest users. External content is something that is shared with you by the external tenants. Today, this content is navigated to by clicking on the links that are shared with you in an email notification. Whenever these artifacts are shared with you, you receive an email notification, you click on the links within those emails, and that's how you navigate to these artifacts today. It is very hard for guest users to manage the navigation in this way if there are multiple artifacts that are being shared with them. So to solve the problem, we are now launching a new UX experience that would make the discovery of these artifacts very easy. I will now demo this feature to you.
We are launching a new capability that is going to make the discoverability of external content very easy for the users. External content is something that is shared with you by the external tenants. Today, this content is navigated to by clicking on the links that are shared with you in an email notification whenever these artifacts are shared with you, which is very hard for users to manage. So we are launching a new UX experience that would make the discovery of these artifacts very easy. So on the home page, you can now see a fourth tab called From External Orgs. When this tab will only show up for the users who are guests in any other tenant. When you click on it, you will see the list of all the content that is shared with you by the external tenants. As you can see, there you can see the name of the artifact here. You can see the name of the organization or the tenant that is sharing that content with you. You can see the workspace in which they reside. You can see when the artifact was last opened in your tenant, and then the type of the artifact. You can easily sort through these columns to make it easier for you to find the right artifact. You can also filter this by a keyword. As you can see, everything with POP in it shows up. You can also filter by the type of artifact. So all of the reports show up here. And then if you want to navigate to any of the content, let's say we want to open this data set, we click on the link and it opens up a new browser which takes you to the provider environment and opens up the artifact in the provider environment. So basically, clicking on the links in the discoverability UX would work just like clicking on the links in your email inbox notifications. When you click on them, they open up a new browser and they take you to the provider environment and open up the artifact there.
So those were the new B2B features that we have recently launched in our Power BI environment. We have a lot more detailed documentation on our docs online. Please go out and try out this feature. If you have any feedback or questions, please feel free to reach out. My email ID is paba, P-A-B-A, @microsoft.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Parul. Today in Power BI, report creators perform a multi-step process when sharing reports. First, saving the report. Second, manually publishing it to the service. And then third, opening that report in the service in order to share. However, for Microsoft 365 users, saving and sharing files like a PowerPoint deck or a Word document is simple and quick through OneDrive and SharePoint. But what about Power BI reports? Currently, reports saved to OneDrive or SharePoint cannot be viewed at all, requiring viewers and creators to download the report every time just to see a preview. This creates needless friction. Power BI is at the forefront of enabling organizations to make data-driven decisions for their businesses, and we're taking this one step further with deeper integration with Microsoft 365. With this integration, users will be able to save and share their Power BI reports directly to OneDrive and SharePoint, for others to preview and interact directly from within their own OneDrive and SharePoint experience. Let's take a look at this in action. Here, a marketer is analyzing tourism data that she wishes to quickly share with a colleague. When saving the report in Power BI Desktop, there is a new option to save it directly to a shared location in OneDrive for easier access and collaboration. Once the file is saved to a shared location in OneDrive, the marketer and her colleague can now explore and interact with the report directly from OneDrive without needing to download and launch Power BI Desktop or manually publishing to the Power BI service. This capability not only makes it easier to share Power BI reports, but also simplifies the workflow for users that want to quickly analyze the reports from OneDrive or SharePoint itself. If you and your organization are interested in trying out our private preview, please contact your Microsoft account manager for more details.
My name is Ogbemi Ekwejuna Eche. I'm a senior product manager on the Microsoft Power BI team. My team's main focus is on the analysis services workload and Power BI Premium. We ensure that our product meets the most demanding enterprise requirements for performance, capability, and security. Today, I'll share with you a bit of our strategic roadmap for the future of enterprise semantic models and what that means in the context of Power BI. Feel free to reach out to me directly with questions. My email is ogechie, that's OGETCHIE, @microsoft.com. So let's jump right in. In this session, we'll cover the use cases for enterprise semantic models, what they are, and why they're important for your enterprise. Then we'll go into the historical landscape and why we converged enterprise and self-service BI onto the Power BI Premium platform by making Power BI Premium a superset of Azure Analysis Services with awesome features and capabilities to take your business intelligence scenarios to the next level. Then we'll dive into how users can go from Azure Analysis Services to Power BI. So I'll show you a pretty cool demo of the recently launched automated migration tool that makes the entire experience as pain-free and as friction-free as possible for your, and with limited little impact to your downstream users. We'll also discuss how we think about migrations and what some of the things to consider are when comparing Azure Analysis Services and Power BI Premium. You just may be surprised by some of the benefits you'll find when analyzing your particular scenario. So I know many viewers watching here today will be familiar with the space, but let me first set the context. What is an enterprise semantic model? At its core, semantic models represent a single source of truth across an entire enterprise. This is the source of truth at the backbone of all reporting and data viz in your entire enterprise. So let's imagine a scenario as an enterprise where all of your data is stored in a large database. To be effective, you'd want that to make that data available to your business users or even customers so they can do their own analysis, build their own reports, and begin generating insights from the data. To do this, one option would be to give those users access to that database. Of course, this option has several drawbacks. The design of that database, including the names and columns, may not be easy for those users to understand. They'd want to know which tables to query, how those tables should be joined, and other business logic needs to be applied just to get the correct results. Most often, this will lead to multiple users reporting the same metrics, but with very, very different results, which is very unideal. With a semantic model, you can encapsulate all the information needed into a single version of the truth that all reporting and data viz can come from. The metadata included in the semantic model includes relationships between tables, friendly table and column names, descriptions, display folders, calculations, and row level security, which can then be universally applied across your entire enterprise. The enterprise semantic model is critical for any self-service application. So at Microsoft, we have a very deep heritage in enterprise semantic modeling. We are the only vendor to be ranked as leaders in the Gartner's Magic Quadrant for BI and analytics platforms for 15 years now. We deeply understand that our customers demand enterprise BI solutions that scale to petabytes, are easy to secure, easy to manage, and accessible to all users across the largest organizations. Azure Analysis Services and SQL Server Analysis Services are based on BI engine technology used by countless enterprises for multiple decades. Now, Power BI datasets run on the analysis services. So all we had to do was enable direct access to the analysis services engine running behind the Power BI dataset. This allows pretty much every other major BI vendor on the planet to connect to Power BI as though it was an analysis services model. So what does this mean for customers? This means that customers can deploy single versions of the truth semantic models at a global scale. Even if pockets of users are still using non-Microsoft data viz tools, that's not a problem. We're not planning to block customers from deploying semantic models at all. Customers will be able to deploy semantic models at a global scale on Power BI Premium platform. Now let's get to the meat of it. Why are we converging enterprise and self-service BI? Up until a few years ago, our products targeted enterprise and self-service separately. We had Azure Analysis Services for enterprise BI solutions on one end and Power BI for self-service BI scenarios on the other end. But we've been clear for many, many years now that our strategy is to converge onto Power BI Premium, really making Power BI Premium a one-stop shop for all of your business intelligence needs. To be clear, by enterprise BI, I mean where the semantic model or Power BI dataset is owned and managed by IT, and then business users create reports from that. There are a lot of benefits to an enterprise BI model. It being owned by IT promotes data quality, good data definitions, and consistent decisions across large enterprises. On the self-service side, in addition to creating reports, the business users also gather and integrate data themselves directly from source systems and begin creating their own data models. This is a huge scale factor. Self-service BI enables business users to discover new insights quickly and easily without putting resources on IT. So why are we converging? The reality is enterprise and self-service BI are really two ends of a BI spectrum. Unifying self-service and enterprise reduces the cost and complexity of using multiple solutions. A single platform reduces management overhead. Customers don't need to bridge the gap between Azure Analysis Services and Power BI. You don't need to maintain two different products. And data insights discovered by business users are more easily operationalized, promoting collaboration between the business and IT. So let's take a look at where we were before. So a few years ago, this is where we were. As a customer, you really had to choose between Azure Analysis Services or Power BI. There are many features found in Azure Analysis Services tailored specifically for enterprise modeling use cases that we didn't have in Power BI. Many customers chose Azure Analysis Services because of features like the XML endpoint for open platform connectivity, large model cache sizes, having Azure Log Analytics, backup restore capabilities, and other security needs for an enterprise. But those same customers saw the huge investments we made for Enterprise BI and Power BI Premium that wouldn't work unless the dataset or semantic model resides in Power BI Premium. So for example, dataset discoverability in Excel and Teams, superior security with VNets, Premium Gen 2 for enhanced scalability and reduced management overhead, access to many, many more data sources, and of course, big data analytic features like automatic aggregations and hybrid tables, improved governance with Purview integration, and the list could keep going on and on. So of course, this generated considerable demand for organic migration from Azure Analysis Services to Power BI Premium. We received a ton of escalations for features that just weren't present in AAS and with no plan or no ability to actually bring them into Azure Analysis Services. And the gap just kept growing bigger and bigger. So we worked diligently to make Power BI Premium a superset of Azure Analysis Services. At least for new deployments, customers are now choosing Power BI Premium Gen 2 because it has all of the capabilities on a single platform. We're happy to say that we've brought all the superset features of AAS to Power BI Premium. Now in Power BI, you have XML endpoint connectivity, you can work with large models, you have similar capabilities in refresh and security, just like Azure Analysis Services. And recently, the last piece of the superset story, we've enabled query scale-out, which gives customers the ability to spin up additional dataset replicas to distribute client loads across multiple nodes, bringing a huge performance feature in a cost-efficient way. However, existing Azure Analysis Services models are proving difficult to migrate. There are many manual steps involved with third-party programs, and existing reports need to manually be redirected to the model sitting in the Power BI workspace, which is a lot of work. And if you're not necessarily aware of where those reports sit, those reports never actually get redirected. So we're proud to share that we've been working on solving this problem for customers and can provide the automated migration experience that circumvents these issues. Let's jump into a quick demo. All right, so let's jump right in. Here we are in our favorite tool, Power BI. As I mentioned in the beginning of this session, this is a first-party experience that's meant to really simplify the entire migration effort. So we added an option here, Azure Analysis Services Migrations, that leads you to the migration experience. Here is the landing page for the migration experience. On this page, you can begin the process of pairing your Azure Analysis Services server to your Power BI Premium workspace to create a migration connection. You can then select the datasets or models within that server that you want to migrate to Power BI, and then after the migration is completed, enable server redirection, which allows all of the downstream users and their Connect XML connected client tools to work seamlessly. Let's go ahead and begin the migration. Select the new migration button. Here you can connect to your Azure Analysis Services server, as well as connect to an existing premium workspace or create a new premium workspace. Let's go ahead and connect to the server. Locate the subscription, resource group, and then select the server. We're going to go ahead and create a new workspace, and we'll use premium per user licensing, and then hit create. All right, so now we have a migration connection. We can go in and select the data sets we want to migrate. Click into that, opens up the migration details page. Here we're going to see a dynamically loaded list of all of the data sets that reside on that server. The status, since we haven't migrated it before, it'll show not migrated. We have a toggle to show whether or not we want to include in the migration. And then if you're performing an extra migration, for example, it'll show whether the dataset already resides in your premium workspace. Up here is a list of the pertaining information to your server, as well as the premium workspace. Before we can actually migrate, as you can see, it's actually grayed out here. You have to make sure that you have a backup storage enabled for your server, and that server firewall is either disabled, or if it's enabled, ensure that you have allow access from Power BI enabled as well. On the Power BI Premium side, we need to make sure that we have the AWS Gen 2 storage enabled. So let's go ahead and enable that here. Connect again to our subscription, resource group, and locate the AWS Gen 2 storage location. Now we're connected. The last thing to note is to make sure that your XMLA endpoint is set to read write for your capacity. And then finally, we can actually begin the migration. One thing to note, however, is your regions. In some cases, you may want to migrate from one region to another, but just make sure that you follow your data residency guidelines. It's not going to be a blocking item, but it's something just as you're migrating, just to be aware of. So we'll go ahead and select the data set we want to migrate, select migrate, and then confirm that the workspace regions are not the same, and hit OK. At this point, the migration begins. We can go ahead and check to see the status of the migration as it goes from the backup to copying and restoring, and then setting permissions across the workspace so that users who had access to the server and a model in the server before can actually continue using and accessing the model as it resides in the Power BI workspace. Once the migration is completed, we can go back to the landing page and decide to enable server redirection. So server redirection is actually one of the bigger feature items we've added. It was one of the biggest blockers we had for migration. So up until this time, a lot of our customers could piecemeal migration themselves. It's a tedious process, but it is possible. But once you've migrated, the hundreds of reports and client tools that were connected to the server would actually be broken. So your downstream users would be impacted. With server redirection and report rebinding, those connections would automatically redirect to the model sitting in the target workspace. So as an admin, you toggle this on after you've completed the migration, and all of the XMLA-based client tools referring to your Azure Analysis Services server would automatically redirect to your target workspace. It's a very powerful feature that eliminates a big blocker that prevented some of our big customers from migrating. Let's go ahead and turn that on. So redirection is now enabled. Now that we've seen just how easy it is to migrate to Power BI, let's dive into some of the considerations you may have before making the migration. As a side note, we have no plans to deprecate Azure Analysis Services at this time. To evaluate whether migration is right for you, here are a few factors to consider. When comparing Power BI Premium to Azure Analysis Services costs, make sure to consider factors beyond price per core. Power BI provides reduced cost of ownership and business value with both front-end and back-end cores, with many features that are only available to Power BI data models. With Azure Analysis Services, you only purchase back-end cores. In Premium, there are options like Premium per user, so that small to medium-sized organizations have a cheaper option to enable premium features at a low-cost entry point. Assuming you already use Power BI in your organizations, calculate costs based on the existing profile that combines what you use for Azure Analysis Services and Power BI, and compare that with your target profile on Power BI Premium. To help determine your target profile on Premium, be sure to consider the following points: the region requirements for existing servers, the largest Azure Analysis Services data model size in each region, the number of users in each region, the number of users required to develop manage content, and lastly, CPU consumption across your AAS and Power BI Premium. With these considerations, you'd be able to build a target profile that more accurately estimates your cost going forward in Power BI. Please also check out the migration scenarios documentation we have online for more information. So these are just a few of factors to help inform whether migration is a good decision for you at this time. And at this point, Power BI Premium investments will only continue to grow in the future. So there's huge strategic value to align with the Microsoft BI product roadmap at this time. So in closing, please be sure to check out the online guide we have for migrations, and please feel free to reach out to me directly with any questions. Thank you for listening.